truth, logic, common sense, they gut feeling, and yes, even a little psychoanalysis. As we are once again together, you and I, to discuss Chad and Lori Daybell. Well, folks, today we got the news that Monday starts opening statements in the Lori Hussey Daybell trial. And yes, jury selection is still going on. I haven't checked. I'm assuming they're meeting with the first 15 in the panel. They're trying to get 2 more jurors. But I'm assuming through the day, if it hasn't happened with this first panel, that they'll be able to find 2 more and then they'll go into the strike process. Obviously, if they're going to make an announcement that Monday is opening statements, they're going to get everything done on that. But I'm not here just to update y'all on that. I'm also here to kind of, just kind of go into what the news was this morning. I released a short vid. I wasn't exactly coffee filled at the time, but I did get an opportunity to look over these documents. And I wanted to go over some of that with y'all. And just to say this, y'all, just to reemphasize how very happy I am for Kay and Larry and Crescia. Yes, Larry is kind of in limbo right now, I'm sure. I'm hoping that the state will have enough decency to put Larry on near the beginning of the trial so that he can be out there with his wife, Kay Woodcock. That was something else that was brought out in the news media and then had to be corrected. We'll go into that. The bottom line is Larry and Kay are married. And this brings me to another thing that just kind of dawned on me when I was looking over all this. And that is these are victims of what Chad and Lori and this cult did. And the fact that they've got to have their private and personal lives out there, dissected, their family dynamic and all, it's absolutely sad, really. But I know that Kay and Larry, they are people of integrity. Their family is just as, diverse, and the way that their lives have unfolded thus far, it can't be too much different than a lot of our lives. A lot of us come from different backgrounds and we have different family dynamics. I'm so blessed that I got to meet Kay and Larry and Crescia. They will always be my Louisiana family. They mean so much to me. But with that said, I wanted to talk to y'all about this particular view of this morning's ruling that Kay is the personal representative, that Larry, I'm hoping, will get to sit through the trial with Kay. You got Summer Shiflett, who's been given, she's the representative of Tylee. There's been a lot of talk online about Annie Cushing. Now, I have all sympathies and compassion and respect for Annie Cushing. But again, y'all, Annie Cushing, she was originally on the witness list for the death penalty phase. And when the death penalty phase got taken off the table, she was no longer a consideration. Remember, y'all, this was about who actually is going to be a state's witness in this trial. If you really want to kind of break it down a little bit, think about this. Kobe Ryan has been, he's a witness and he's going to testify. Wouldn't people think that Kobe Ryan would be more of immediate family than Annie Cushing? I know she loved Tylee, and I totally get everybody's views on that, but it just seems to me that the judge would have appointed Kobe Ryan as Tylee's personal representative over Summer Shiflett. He and Tylee had the same mother. He is immediate family. He spent more time with Tylee than Summer has. And y'all know how I feel about Summer Shiflett. I don't trust anyone in the Cox family. And if it came down to it, I would have much rathered Annie Cushing be a legal representative of Tylee. All I'm saying is this is about specificity on the state's witness list. And the only question I have isn't about Annie. It's about why the judge did not allow Kobe to be Tylee's representative. You see what I'm saying? But, the bottom line is this, y'all. I was very much doing a lot of praying for Kay and Larry and their family. I really wanted this to work out the way I hoped it would. I guess if I could have had my way, Larry would have been included as a legal representative too. He was not biologically, the grandparent and all this and that, but y'all, even old KJ had step parents, and they're wonderful people to take on someone else's children. Larry Woodcock is America's dad as far as I'm concerned, a man that I look up to and who inspires me and is a great example of a man in the United States of America and really even in the world. I know he's going to take this with stride. Hopefully they can get something worked out with the state. He is as strong as an oak tree. And I know that, if he has to wait a little bit before he can get in the courtroom with Kay and Crescia, I know he'll be just fine. Larry can handle it. They brought this with them the whole time that they have been seeking justice. And the bottom line is they're going to be just fine. Y'all, I'm telling you, I got all of these thoughts going on in my mind about it. Y'all know, I can't help it. I gotta gloat a little bit when I think about Lori having to accept the judge's ruling on this. The woman is spitting mad. Basically, what I want to say on that is how much evil does one person have to have in order to murder their own children and Tammy Daybell and Charles Vallow? Well, if you really have just, a guess, or if you kind of have some idea as we see the results of what murder can do, then you can understand that type of evil that's in Lori, she is absolutely beside herself right now with that evil in her, very much upset about this ruling, and rightly so. She did everything in her power to keep the people that love JJ and Tylee away from them, and now she cannot do anything about it. As we all know, JJ and Tylee, they're not here with us anymore. But I'll tell you something, just absolutely knowing that Kay has legal representation of JJ, it just swells my heart and makes me feel so much better about this whole legal process. We've had so many dang ups and downs and all of this. Everything just has been so hard to deal with, trying to figure out when you love people. I love Kay and Larry and Crescia, and I didn't get to know the victims. But I'm just saying, just think about this, y'all. It came down to Charles Vallow. Charles Vallow is the reason that Kay gets to be JJ's legal representative. Kay is the voice, and I believe Crescia is as well, but Crescia's not on the witness list. But just to know that Kay gets to, in the judge's order, talked about Kay gets to be in Charles's stead. It's a wonderful feeling, and I'm so very thankful for it. So let's just go over these legal documents. I'm not going to go through them word by word. Some of them I'm not. First of all, I want to address this brief to clarify familial relationships by Archie. This is a legal document that makes it quite clear, y'all, that he is looking specifically at legal standard. He's not looking at the obvious. And the state has a brief that I will read because I feel like it sums everything up. But Archie wants to say, well, technically this and technically that. And yes, law is Law, y'all. Yes, the law is cut and dry. But when you add other casework to it and look at past precedent on it, that's the whole thing about a law. It's followed. It can be added precedent to it and all this and that. And I think that what he was just trying to do was the wishes of Lori. Make no mistake. This is what Lori wanted to bring out. She wanted to make it look like that Kay and Larry had no rights at all to JJ. Although the whole entire time, I'm not going to regurgitate it specifically, but Lori even called Kay and Larry grandma and grandpa. So, it's just this type of situation. You have to look at the totality of everything. Yes, you have to look at the law, but you've got to look at everything surrounding it too in order to make an informed decision with legality as it pertains to legal representation. And this is what the judge did. I had no idea, that he was going to go down the road of saying, well, Charles Vallow is dead, the father of JJ. He's been murdered. And because he can't be there for JJ, we're going to give Kay Woodcock, who's the sister of Charles, this legal authority. Y'all, I'm just so blessed. I'm not going to go through this brief of Archie's. He's just basically explaining. I mean, it really comes down to the government has the government has consistently stated to the public that Larry and Kay Woodcock are grandparents of J.J. Vallow. This is not true. As such, they should be excluded from the courtroom. Well, legally, it has been bared out that that is the situation in terms of legality. But that is not, if you're looking at the legal paperwork and things that have been filed, things that have happened, you have to take that into totality. And I believe the state has absolutely spelled this out. And I think it's important to put it on the record. I'm not saying every word for word of the state's response here is everything that, I agree with, but for the most part it is. The memorandum decision and order, not the memorandum, that's Judge Boyce's. I've got that as well. The memorandum regarding exclusion of victims. And if y'all recall, when this was dropped into everyone's lap last week, the bottom line is, as Rob Wood said, we want time to file a brief. And I'm glad they did. And even though the state argues the fact that everybody knows that Kay and Larry are JJ's grandparents, Archie's saying they're legally not. The state has a way of going through this, and Judge Boyce was able to put on his administrator of justice hat to weave through it to get to a viable and a good way of allowing Kay to be that representative without any problems of appeal. So here we go, y'all. Listen up. Joshua Jackson J.J. Vallow was 7 years old at the time of his death. One of his accused murderers is his adopted mother, Lori Daybell. J.J. Vallow was born to Dennis Todd Trahan and Mandy Ledger on May 15th of 2012. When Todd and Mandy were unable to care for J.J., he was provided a home by his paternal grandmother, Kay Woodcock. J.J. lived with Kay and her husband, Larry, for the first several months of his life. During this time, the Woodcocks had temporary custody and guardianship of JJ. Now, there's a legal thing right there that the judge can look to. Charles Vallow, Kay's brother, was married to Lori Vallow, who had other children from another marriage. When Dennis and Mandy elected to give up their parental rights in an effort to provide JJ with a better upbringing than they could provide, Charles and Lori began adoption proceedings. After the adoption was finalized, Kay Woodcock now found herself in an interesting position of being both the biological grandmother and the adoptive aunt of JJ. This was a very special situation, y'all. And there are a lot of people all over the country and the world that do these adoptions. And there are people out here, and let's just put aside that Archie wants to bring out that Kay and Larry divorced and got remarried. Some people don't go the legal route of getting married. Do we always have to deal with the government freaking stamp? This is real life we're talking about. Kay Woodcock continued in her role as grandmother, frequently having JJ visit her and Larry both at their home or where JJ lived. Although she may have legally held the familial title of aunt, Kay was considered by JJ and his adoptive family as JJ's grandmother. When law enforcement first made contact with the defendant on November 26 of 2019, which was the day of the welfare check, regarding JJ's whereabouts, the defendant, Lori Hussey Daybell, referred to Kay as JJ's grandma. There you go. In early 2019, Charles Vallow recognized Kay as JJ's grandmother and desiring that JJ be taken care of by a loving family member, designated Kay to stand in his place as the provider for JJ by making Kay Woodcock the beneficiary of his life insurance policy. Now let's stop there. We've talked about this before. The whole reason Charles, he didn't just do this to shade Lori because him and Lori were splitting up. If he would have, say they would have gotten a divorce and it would have been, irreconcilable differences and she'd have never got into an adulterous affair and doing all the shit she did, he would have left Lori the beneficiary because he would have known Lori would have taken care of JJ. But he damn well knew that Lori was going down a road where she didn't give a shit. She didn't care. She even told Charles that she didn't want JJ anymore. And so he knew that he had to do what was best for JJ by making Kay Woodcock the insurance beneficiary. This was a lot bigger. This was something Charles, being responsible, felt like he needed to do. Although Charles Vallow had two sons, Cole Vallow, who was an adult, and Zach Vallow, who was an older teenager at the time he adopted JJ, Charles considered Kay to be the person who would take his place as a caretaker and provider for JJ in the event of his untimely demise. After Charles's death, Kay Woodcock sought to act in the role Charles intended for her by reaching out repeatedly to assist JJ. As evidence of Kay's dedication to JJ, it was she who first contacted the police in late 2019 to express her concerns about JJ's location and welfare. Now let me stop there. I want to add this because I feel it's important. Larry Woodcock knew back in, 2017 that something was off. And he tried to advise Charles Vallow. So Larry also was involved in all this, but him and Kay together as a unit. That's why it's discouraging and disappointing to me that Larry is not included as a legal representative as well. The man deserves it. Over the ensuing days and weeks, as JJ's whereabouts remained unknown, and when the defendant, now Lori Daybell, refused to provide information, Kay became frantic. She frequently called law enforcement and her sister-in-law, the defendant Lori Daybell, in an effort to ascertain JJ's location and determine if he was okay. After several months of worry, her greatest fears were realized when JJ's body was found buried in the backyard of the defendant's new husband, Chad Daybell. And make no mistake, y'all. This isn't just the state's response to whether Kay can be in the courtroom and be a legal representative. Y'all, what they've put in this document is the same narrative in a lot of ways for this particular part of the story, of the whole case. This will be brought out in the trial. Make no mistake. Summer Shiflett is the defendant Lori Daybell's biological sister, biological aunt to Tylee Ryan, and adoptive aunt to J.J. Vallow. Tylee Ryan is the biological daughter of the defendant Lori Daybell, and adoptive half-sister of J.J. Vallow. Kobe Ryan is the biological son of Lori Daybell, and adoptive half-brother of J.J. Vallow. And they should have added that him and Tylee were biological sister and brother. Yes, they had different fathers, but they had the same mother. Now, here's the argument that the state brings up in their response to all of this. Victims have both a constitution and statutory right to attend court proceedings. In an acknowledgement that the state of Idaho has long protected the rights of criminal defendants, but have failed to protect the rights of crime victims, in 1994, the Idaho Constitution was amended to protect the rights of victims of crime by adding Section 22. Shortly thereafter, Idaho Code 19-5306 was amended relating to victims' rights. With the amendment, a crime victim has a constitutional right to be present at all criminal justice proceedings. And then it gives a bunch of code, and it says this constitutional right to be present at all proceedings is not limited to victims who will not also be called as witnesses. And then it goes into the Idaho Code. It defines victim as an individual who suffers direct or threatened physical, financial, or emotional harm as the result of the commission of a crime or juvenile offense. And they put it in bold, emotional harm, and we know this is where they're going with this. We know good and dang well, Kay, Larry Ann Crescia, but, we're talking about state's witnesses here. But this family have had so much emotional harm and trauma about all of this. Further, this Idaho Code states that it shall apply equally to the immediate families of homicide victims. Immediate family is not defined in this code. It has, however, been defined in another Idaho code. And this is when they go into immediate family and our personal representatives are victims pursuant to Idaho Code 19-506, Section 3, and or 19-5306, Section 5. Now, hear me out. Idaho Code defines immediate family in at least 5 places. The purposes of the guardian ad litem statutes, immediate family includes but is not limited to spouse, parents, siblings, children, and next of kin. Then it talks about for prison furlough purposes, immediate family is defined as a mother or father, brother or sister of the whole or half-blood, a wife or husband or lawful issue. For certain insurance fraud regulations, the term immediate family member means a parent, mother-in-law, father-in-law, husband, wife, sister, brother, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, or son or daughter. For the purpose of farm labor, contractor licenses, immediate family members means the spouse, children, brother, sister, mother, father. For residential mortgage practices, and as you notice, they're going through all of these different codes that have got unrelated stuff, but they're trying to let the judge know that this is being defined in all kinds of areas. It says for the purpose of farm labor, contractor licenses, immediate family members means spouse, children, brother, sister, mother, or father. For residential mortgage practices, immediate family members means a spouse, child, sibling, parent, grandparent, grandchild, and includes step-parents, step-children, step-siblings, and adoptive relationships. In each case, both siblings and parents are included as immediate family. And then it goes on to cite the different cases that's showing up in Idaho law. Federal code relating to homicide victims, and remember we talked about this when I went off the deep end. When this first issue came out, I said, if Judge Boyce can use federal code to take the death penalty off the table, he should do it. State and, okay. He used federal code. Okay, y'all, just my brain's working. He used federal code to take the death penalty off the table. He should be able to do it for this situation. Here it is. Federal code relating to homicide victims' families' rights in cold cases include commonly understood immediate family members, but then extends to parents-in-laws, grandparents, and grandparent-in-laws of murder victims. One of the murdered victims in this case is J.J. Vallow, as J.J.'s father, Charles Vallow, would constitute a victim due to his own murder, for which defendant has been indicted in Maricopa County, Arizona. He is no longer able to represent J.J. as an immediate family member. Therefore, his immediate family or appointed personal representative would be entitled to step into his place as the immediate family of J.J. That would include Charles's sister, Kay Woodcock. The defendant should not be allowed to benefit from her alleged role in Mr. Vallow's death, which has precluded him from exercising his rights as a victim in this case, and further precluding other affected persons from filling his role as the immediate family or personal representative as a recognized victim of J.J.'s murder. If the court concludes Kay Woodcock and or Larry Woodcock are not immediate family, pursuant to Idaho Code 19-5306, Section 3, they certainly qualify as victims pursuant to Idaho Code 19-53065. The Woodcocks have suffered direct emotional harm as the result of the commission of the crime in this case. Whether the court views Mrs. Woodcock as the biological grandmother or adoptive aunt, it is undisputed. She is a close family member of a minor child who was murdered. It was Kay Woodcock who initiated this investigation into JJ's whereabouts based on her worries and fears as to his well-being. Without her contacting law enforcement, the disappearance and murder of JJ and Tylee Ryan may not have been discovered. Summer Shifley, as the biological aunt to Tylee, an adoptive aunt to JJ, has also suffered direct emotional harm due to the defendant's actions. Additionally, the defendant was indicted in this case on May 25th of 2021. At no time from May 25th of 2021, almost 2 years ago, until March 29th of 2023, has the defendant raised the issue that Mrs. Woodcock or other family members are not victims entitled to the constitutional and statutory rights afforded victims of crimes. Throughout this case, Mrs. Woodcock and other family members have been allowed to attend Zoom and in-court hearings with special accommodations given regarding their presence, access, and seating, etc. The court has allowed, and the defendant has not objected to their sitting as victims in prior proceedings, thus indicating apparent recognition of their status as victims. Only now, 5 days before trial, has defense raised the issue following the court issuing its sua sponte order excluding witnesses pursuant to Idaho Rule of Evidence 615, Section A. After relying on at least implicit representation that their victims' rights would be upheld and they could receive some degree of healing through taking part in the legal proceedings, to now suddenly rip the proverbial carpet out from under their feet seems a cruel request from the defendant. And make no mistake, Lori Hussey Daybell is cruel and evil. She would do anything at this point to be able to exact any kind of hurt or anything she can. And she's now in the position, as of this morning, she can't do shit. She cannot use her freaking goddess powers and her evil deeds to do anything else at this point. The hammer is coming down on her, folks. A victim may also be a witness. Be a witness is not subject to exclusion from court proceedings. Idaho Rules of Evidence 615A provides that a court may exclude witnesses during certain proceedings, thus giving the court discretion on whether to exclude at all, some or no witnesses from hearing from other witness testimony. And then it goes into it talks about the permissive nature of Idaho Rules of Evidence 615A is differentiated. It's different from Idaho Rules of Evidence 615B, which states, quote, notwithstanding subsection A, 1 and 2 and 3 of this rule, in a preliminary hearing, if either party requests it, and the magistrate must exclude all non-party witnesses who have not been examined. However, rule expressly states that a court is not authorized to exclude a crime victim whose exclusion is prohibited under Article 1, Section 22 of the Idaho Constitution. As victims, Kay Woodcock, Summer Shiflett, and Kobe Ryan have a right to be present in all court proceedings and cannot be excluded, even in proceedings where they may be called as witnesses. While not specifically challenged, this same analysis is applicable to Tammy Daybell's family members, including but not limited to Tammy's parents, siblings, and siblings' spouses. And the reason that they bring this out is because they're saying, first of all, before they got into that, they were talking about the Woodcocks were there during these Zoom calls, preliminary hearing. Now they're homing in on it, and they're saying, we want to make sure that this is all tied up, that because there was a preliminary hearing, that Lori can't come back down the road and say, well, before the judge ruled that Kay was the personal representative for my trial, I want to put in an appeal that they were there at the preliminary hearing. Well, what he's trying to say is they never objected to any of these past pretrial things. And this is the state's way of tying that up so that they can't use this down the road in an appeal. Even should the court determine that Kay and Larry do not get to stand in place of their murdered brother to act as victim representatives for their murdered grandson, the court should still find them to be victims based on their direct emotional harm. Even where the court to somehow find they did not meet the statutory definition of victim, given their relationship to the actual victim and their prior treatment by the court as victims, the court should still exercise the discretion given it under the rule and allow their presence during trial. In conclusion, the state of Idaho holds victims' rights to be of paramount importance, as evidenced by a constitutional amendment to ensure victims' rights are properly protected. Victims of homicide cannot exercise their constitutional rights as a result of the actions of their killers. An accused killer should not be able to benefit from the absence of a victim, nor should an accused killer be able to block the exercise of those rights by those that stand in the place of a deceased victim. Defendant now seeks to do exactly that. Defendant asks this court to exclude Kay and Larry Woodcock. Kay is the biological grandmother and legal aunt of J.J. Vallow. They raised J.J. during most of his first year of his life and exercised the role of doting grandparents despite holding the legal status of aunt and uncle. While aunt and uncle do not normally fall within the definition of immediate family to J.J. Vallow, the man who would normally stand in J.J.'s place for purposes of victims' rights was also murdered. Defendant has been indicted for her involvement in a conspiracy for that murder. Because J.J.'s father has been murdered, his immediate family should then be able to stand in the place. Kay and Larry Woodcock are immediate family under the statute as sister and brother-in-law. Alternatively, they have suffered direct emotional harm similar to Summer Shiflett as a result of the defendant's actions and constitute victims pursuant to that statute. And I really thought that was a good response from the state. And I'll tell y'all that the judge did not rule that Kay was. I guess he could have. I don't know. He didn't rule that Kay was JJ's grandmother, but everybody knows. Everybody knows that she is, and so is Larry. The bottom line is that this is excellent news. And, you know, I'm not going to go into the judge's order other than to say that, hold on just one second, my paper fell. Other than to say that the judge did the right thing, and he backed it all up, and he sewed it all up perfectly so that Lori, she can kick and scream about the whole damn thing. She can whine and bitch all she wants. But Kay Woodcock has got the upper hand in all this now, and so does her husband, Larry Woodcock. This family deserves the respect and the constitutional rights afforded to people as victims in Idaho. I'm so very much just lightened up now about this now that this has been ruled on. So in closing, let me just say this. I want to bring this out because this is a wonderful, wonderful ruling. I'm so glad it's happened. I'm so happy. But I do want y'all to recall that some of these state's witnesses are cult members, and every damn one of them believed every damn thing that Lori and Chad told them, including angry grandma and how Kay and Larry were awful people. You got people that's not involved in this case that came out publicly to tell everybody that this wasn't about any danger to the kids. This was about angry grandma, Christopher Parrott. All of them can shut their damn mouth. Every one of them now. Because the bottom line is they are all absolutely pathetic individuals to be disrespectful. Kay and Larry, they deserve what happened this morning, and I'm so blessed to have been able to pray about this, and it came the way it did. Let me just tell y'all this. If it'd gone the other way, I'd have been off the deep end, but I would have had to accept it. And it really comes down to Lori getting a fair trial. The judge knows that to allow Kay this representation of JJ and all of that, he knows this isn't going to cause any appeals issues. The judge has definitely found his way to do the right thing, and I'm thankful for that. I really am. So, leave y'all's comments. My good buddy Mary and I are going out this evening. We're going to go and have dinner and, a few drinky drinks. For my birthday, I'm going to be leaving to go out of town. Don't worry, y'all. I'm going to be with you right there, bright and bushy, Monday morning when opening statements start. Thank y'all so much for all the input that you've given me. I love you all. Have a great Easter weekend and keep on looking.